Hello, it's mid-month, Tuesday, May 15. This is what we have for you on InfoHub. More housing being provided for Guyanese as over 350 families set to receive fully serviced house lots on the east bank of the Marara this year. More Guyanese will access opportunities in the oil and gas sector as local capacity building has gotten another boost. Piracy in Guyana's waters has been virtually eliminated since the coalition government took office, but the Coast Guard is not letting up in its fight to keep the scourge at bay. And we have another major update on the Lindo Creek Commission of Inquiry. Check us on the other side of these messages for the details.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.
We start off with major news in the housing sector. Over 350 families will receive house lots in Providence and Peters Hall before year end. Crystal Stull tells us that the Central Housing and Planning Authority signed agreements with several local contractors to start preparatory works.
The coalition government has announced that it is pumping over $545 million into the preparation of 2 housing areas, which will benefit some 368 families. Contracts were today signed with several contractors for the preparatory works to commence. CH&PA's Chief Executive Officer Leland Saul said that the contractors were selected through a fair and open tender process.
Those who would have satisfied the requirement, the criteria, they were evaluated as being or deemed as being suitable to execute the work. This contract was overseen by the National Procurement and Tender Board.
Saul implored the contractors to ensure that the works are completed on schedule, as families will be anxious to begin construction of their homes.
I trust that you will adhere to the terms and conditions of the contract which you will sign. If you fail to do so, of course, as an agency, we will be forced to take whatever appropriate action.
Director of Projects Omar Narain said work which begins in June is expected to be completed within the next 5 months. Chung's Global Enterprise, Guy America Construction, Colin Talbot Contracting Services, and H. North & Sons are some of the contractors enlisted. Quality affordable housing has been a major priority for the government since coming to office in 2015. Crystal Stull for InfoHub.
Guyana is moving to access an advance of a US $20 million World Bank loan to build capacity as part of preparations for when that first batch of oil comes out of the ground in early 2020. Our oil and gas specialist, Tiffany Rogers, reports.
Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, says the government is pushing to receive the initial advance of US $1.7 million by June.
It requires us establishing urgently, strong word, but it is urgent, a project implementation unit. Must have procurement capacities, we must have a coordinator and a financial director. So once those are in place, we can receive the advance, and the larger tranche will be forthcoming towards the end of the year.
The loan will be used to build capacity in the oil and gas industry in 3 important areas, Minister Trotman explains.
Strengthening the regulatory framework, working with the government on the issue of bringing the gas to shore, and the other one is just general capacity building.
Today, Minister Trotman met with World Bank Country Director for Caribbean countries and Latin America, Tashin Saeed, and other technical experts to discuss the loan which was secured by the Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan. Reporting for InfoHub, Tiffany Rogers.
Minister of Public Affairs Don Hastings-Williams was in Region 1 this past weekend and called on Port Kaituma residents to use the upcoming local government elections to take back their community from those who seek to stymie progress and development. Seneca Thorne traveled with the minister and has this report.
The call came after residents raised the issue of the opposition-controlled NDC sowing seeds of division in the community. At a public meeting, the residents spoke of being left out of critical decision-making process and of being denied the right to use the public spaces for events. Minister Hastings-Williams reminded that it was the APNUFC administration that returned local democracy, allowing the Port Kaituma residents to administer their own affairs. She urged them to be fully informed on the process of local governance and exercise their right come year-end when the LGE will be held. The minister also took the opportunity to highlight some of the developments over the past 3 years and reaffirmed the government's commitment to working in the interests of all Guyanese, regardless of their race, religion, or political association. Seneca Thorne for InfoHub.
Guyana's elderly are once again in focus as PAHO WHO facilitated a meeting to address their special needs.
During a consultative meeting on the elderly care booklet held at the Regency Hotel today, Deputy Director of Social Services Abiki Samuels explained that the document will guide caregivers. It is a part of the government's efforts to ensure those living in residential homes are provided with well-rounded minimal health care, which includes an exercise regimen, cost-effective diets, and standard social care.
Over the years, we have noticed that elderly care facilities have been operating unregulated in the absence of guidelines, which would have been provided through the development of minimum standards for such facilities. In many instances, we would have noticed that our elderlies were housed in derelict buildings, they were abused by their caregivers, they were fed meals that were not catered for their nutritional needs, and they were deprived access to medical services.
Samuels explained that the guide's implementation will require cooperation, commitment, and a concerted effort by stakeholders. The ministry, she said, is committed to improving senior citizens' lives, especially those in residential homes. The guide is a collaboration between the Ministries of Social Protection, Public Health, PAHO, WHO, and other government and non-governmental stakeholders. The guide is expected to be completed and available before the end of the year. Paul McAdam for InfoHub.
Paul McAdam now reports that government has taken a strategic and coordinated approach to combat piracy, which is now at an all-time low in Guyana, but there is no letting up in the fight to neutralize the pirates.
The Guyana Defense Forces Coast Guard unit will be given resources once available to increase its presence and protect local fishing grounds. So said Minister of State Joseph Harmon at last Friday's post-cabinet press conference. He reminded that when the coalition government took office, rates of piracy were much higher.
There were 10 reports of piracy. In 2012, there were 22. In 2013, 3. 2014, 8. 2015, 4. In 2016, there was 1. 2017, 9. And for 2018, up to this incident, there was none. This basically was not something that occurred by magic, but it was the result of a consistent approach which the government took to dealing with these matters that when they occur, these piracy matters.
He pointed to the reactivation of the anti-piracy task force and the engagement by the Public Security Minister and his officials with fisherfolk to discuss ways and means to protect their lives and vessels whilst at sea.
You'll recall we'd also even examined the use of transponders to be attached to the fishing vessels so that they can actually give you a signal if they were in distress. So all of these things were happening, and in addition to which, we were flying fortnightly aerial sorties around the coast by our GDF aircraft.
It was this combined effort, the Minister of State added, that forced those with criminal intent outside of Guyana's waters, and it is an issue that the security forces will pay greater attention to. Public Security Minister Kemrat Ramjatan led a high-level delegation to Guyana's eastern neighbour to liaise with Surinamese counterparts as investigations into the attacks, which left 15 dead in that country's waters, continue. Cabinet was also briefed on the measures being taken by Guyana and Suriname to help bring those perpetrators to justice, and the need for closer collaboration between those countries' security forces was also cited. Paul McAdam for InfoHub.
And in our wrap-up report today, we update you on the Lindo Creek Commission of Inquiry. Alexis Rodney tells us that the absence of over 24 statements from members of the joint services who were patrolling the Upper Demerara Berbice region during the time of the massacre in 2008 seems to be eluding the ongoing Commission of Inquiry.
Lindo Creek COI Chairman, retired Justice Donald Trotman, said finding the statements will be a plus to the work of the Commission. He sought the assistance of former Army Chief of Staff, the Rear Admiral Gary Best, to retrieve the statements.
At this time, the Commission gets the feeling that they are being deliberately concealed. But we would wish that, I would hope that that feeling be dispelled by the by honoring the request by both agencies, the police and the GDF, to make those transcripts available to the Commission so that a proper examination of them would clarify certain misconceptions and dispel certain opinions.
Appearing before the Commission yesterday, the retired Army Chief said that it was after he received the reports from the investigating team that the statements were handed over to the police to aid their criminal investigation. Best recalled being on travel duties overseas in June of 2008 when he received a call from former President Bharata Jagdeo informing him of the horrific deaths. Upon his return, he ordered on June 25th that an investigation be carried out by a team from the GDF. The now practicing attorney maintained that the inquiry was not to investigate the deaths of the miners, but the alleged involvement of the Joint Services ranks in the death of those miners. He described the allegations against the officers as troubling.
Reflecting and putting myself back in the position I was in when I sat in the chair, just to find out why the allegations were being made. I felt comforted that there's a Guyana police force and they will do the criminal investigation. And I also wish to assume, perhaps when you refer to the statements, that you're not getting the statements from the police force, because we handed them over to the Guyana police force. We did not keep those statements.
The Joint Services ranks were all part of Operation Restore Order, established to reinstate order following the 2002 prison jailbreak. Reporting for InfoHub, Alexis Rodney.
Connect with us 24/7 on our website and social media, where we have all the breaking news and updates on Guyana. Goodbye.
The future of Guyana has never looked better. Our nation is on the cusp of a development program like never seen before. While Guyana is now emerging as an energy giant through the discovery of massive reserves of oil and natural gas, it is your government's intention that the huge benefits emerging from this will go where it matters most, to you, the people of this beloved country. There is a surge of confidence in the way Guyana is governed once again, and the level of investor interest is unprecedented. Guyana is poised to become the breadbasket of the region, and the pace at which this nation will grow through prudent fiscal management will be nothing short of impressive. But more than anything else will be the way every Guyanese, regardless of color, class, or creed, becomes a part of this historic period of national transformation, sharing in the wealth and well-being of it all as one Guyana.